Hi students! So today I wanted to show you about the layers of the sun. So here's my handy dandy whiteboard, and we're going to start at the center of the sun. And at the center of the sun we have the core. Kind of like Earth, Earth also has a core. So I want you to draw along with me. So if you haven't, grab a sheet of paper and some pencils, colored pencils if you have them. Pens will work too. Pencil. So here's where we start. We start at the core. And let's label this the sun. And we're going to label it our star. The sun isn't a planet, it's a star because it gives off light. So we gave it a label because we're good students. The sun, our star. Now, from the core, we go on to the radiative zone. Radiative means light. So light is transferring from the core out to this next zone. So I draw a circle around the core, and then I'm going to label it radiative zone. Are you drawing along with me? Because this will be helpful later. After the radiative zone, we have what's called the convective zone. And convection means that the hotter something is, it's going to rise. So kind of like convection currents in the ocean or in the air. You might have heard of those before, where the air heats up and then it becomes less dense and it rises. The same is happening near the sun. The core is really hot where all those nuclear reactions are happening. And as the areas outside of the core absorb that heat, they get less dense, and that hot gas is going to rise up to the surface. So we call that the convective zone. And I'm going to draw some little arrows showing that movement, showing that convective movement, where the heat is rising out to the surface of the convective zone. Now, the surface of the convective zone is called the photosphere. The photosphere is also the surface of the sun. So we're going to draw another little circle. And we have the photosphere, or the surface of the sun. And the photosphere is where you're going to find things like sunspots. Sunspots are dark patches on the surface of the sun. So I'm going to draw a little sunspot here, and I'm going to label it sunspot. And you can find those all over the sun. Now, we're going to get into the atmosphere of the sun. The atmosphere of the sun is pretty cool because it's what causes solar winds, and you get things like solar flares, which sometimes you hear about them affecting your cell phone signal, because when solar flares are very active, they can disrupt those signals. You also have prominences that come out of the atmosphere. And then we'll talk about the outermost layer of the sun. But first, the first layer of the atmosphere is called the chromosphere. So here we are. We have the chromosphere, and that's the first layer of the atmosphere. You can write that down if you want. And after the chromosphere, we have the corona, right? You guys have heard of coronavirus? Corona means crown. So we call it the corona because it's like the crown of the sun. It's the outermost layer. So I'm going to fill that in, corona. And the corona is where we get those solar flares and prominences. And I'm going to show you what the difference between those two things are in just a second. And you can always pause this video when I hold up the board in case you need to see it for a little while longer. So a solar flare I'm going to draw my solar flare down here. A solar flare comes straight out. So kind of like this. It comes straight out from the photosphere up through the layers of the sun's atmosphere. And that is a solar flare. The other thing I talked about was a prominence. And a prominence is more like an arc. So it connects from one spot to another spot. So a prominence would look more like this. It starts out kind of like a solar flare, but then it connects to another spot on the sun. So a prominence has this arc shape where it goes from one spot to another spot on the sun. So now you know the layers of the sun, starting with the innermost layer, which is the core. Then you have the radiative zone, then the convective zone, and then the photosphere is known as the surface of the sun. After that, you have the chromosphere, which is the first layer of the sun's atmosphere. And then the outer layer of the sun's atmosphere is called the corona, which means crown, which is why it's on the outside of the sun. I hope you had a good time drawing with me. I'm going to put this up for a second more so you can pause it there if you want to see it for a minute longer. All right, see you again soon.